Hello friends, and welcome back to the garden. Today I want to discuss a little bit about carbon sequestration or carbon capture. I've seen arguments break out on Facebook about what captures more carbon, forests or grasslands. And so it's actually a question that's got some interesting details to it that matter in terms of actually answering the question properly. Forests definitely capture and store more carbon than grasslands. However, forests also burn occasionally. And when they burn, boom, a lot of that carbon is gone. It goes off into the atmosphere as carbon dioxide. The thing about grasslands is, in terms of the percentage of carbon that's captured above ground versus below ground, then grasslands capture proportionally much more carbon below ground than they do above ground. However, for a forest that's a mature forest, full-grown forest with lots of big trees like these oak trees, as long as that doesn't burn, yes, proportionally there's more carbon above ground than below ground in a forest, but that's a lot of carbon. There's a whole lot of carbon in these big trees. So the winner here is a forest. Forests capture more carbon than grasslands, but if the forest burns and goes away or has to start all over again, yeah, a lot of the carbon is gone. So it was temporarily captured. Whereas in a grassland, if the grassland burns, most of the carbon is below ground and it stays put, it doesn't go anywhere. And by the way, the actual type of habitat that captures much more carbon than either forests or grasslands is wetlands. Wetlands are by far the champion of carbon capture. There's just not enough oxygen down at the bottom of the wetland for all the organic matter that settles down there to be decomposed. The fungi and decomposers that would be working on that to release that carbon, they can't do it because they need oxygen, and in that anoxic environment, that dead biomass just sits there. And this is the process that created coal millions of years ago. So aside from that, back to the question of forests versus grasslands. One thing about a food forest garden is typically that's not going to burn. So it turns out that food forest gardens actually capture and hold long-term more carbon than non-food forest natural gardens usually. This is another one of the great environmental benefits of food forests. So, imagine just the more and more people that convert their grassy lawns to food forests. That adds so much to the total acreage of rewilded land, and it really helps to capture quite a bit of carbon. You can get more carbon per acre in a well-designed and well-managed food forest than even in a natural forest. For one thing, a food forest is going to have a less closed canopy than a natural forest, and so you're going to get some of that below ground carbon storage and that you get with a grassland. You're going to get some of that in a food forest. Also, in a food forest garden, typically most gardeners are going to do things to boost the productivity of the food forest as compared to what would happen in a natural forest. They're going to water during the dry periods, for example. And they're going to try to drive productivity high, and they're going to try to get the process of forest succession sped up so that biomass is accumulated more quickly, and that mycorrhizal network and all the organic matter below ground builds up more quickly. So they're definitely capturing carbon more quickly than the natural process of succession in a natural forest. But then also, like I said, if you water a little bit during the dry periods and you do some things to keep your productivity at a high rate, your food forest is going to capture more carbon than a natural forest. So I hope that clarifies the question a little bit. It is amazing how much carbon a natural grassland can store. You know, like the Great Plains with the buffalo. That is a system that can capture quite a bit of carbon, and it's mostly below ground. And even if wildfire comes through, it's still intact. Natural forests typically burn periodically. That's just part of the cycle of natural forests, and it's necessary for a lot of the native species and the ecosystem to function properly. But the one type of forest that really is the champion, as long as we're talking about terrestrial ecosystems and not aquatic ecosystems, but in terms of terrestrial ecosystems, a well-managed food forest is the champion of all types of ecosystems for carbon capture and carbon storage. All right, take care everybody, and happy gardening.